So let me take this again. What is this unit about? This unit explains how Western science started in ancient time. When we talk about the origin of science, we are really talking about the origin of the scientific method, which is the observing, the thinking, the questioning, and explaining nature logically. So before the 17th century, science developed slowly. People observed nature, but often explain it using religion and myths. So this is just an introduction to this course, a simple explanation about how Western science was, how they started in the ancient times. So we want to look at the origin of the Western science, how they started. So when we talk about this origin of science, we are talking about how their scientific method was originated. The scientific method we actually treated like two. Now our two previous units was observation, problem definition, if you can remember, experimentation, hypothesis, like that. So we're talking about the scientific method here. We want to look at the origin, how they were able to discover those scientific method. The observation, the problem definition, how they were able to discover them. So it says that before the 17th century, science developed slowly. The same way computer developed slowly, science also developed slowly because there were new innovations, there were new research, there were new experiments that was actually taking place. So people observe nature, they observe nature, but often explain it using religion and might. In those olden days, people observe nature, yeah, for real they do that because they are still genius too in those days. They observe the nature, but them they use religion and might to explain. That is what they used to explain. They don't give us an evidence, or they don't give us the evidence and experiments that can actually say, yeah, this is the correct thing. But instead they take it in a religious way. They observe it in a religious way. It's just that, for an example, you are dreaming, you dreamt that masquerade is pursuing you. If you have to take it to a religious way, they will tell you that maybe, yeah, that means death is pursuing that person, something bad is going to happen. So that is how they actually observe nature then. So history of Western science is divided into four phases. The first one is the ancient period. That is the after death, 476. That's the ancient period. Then the middle age. That one also is after death, 476 to 1400. And the third one is rise of modern science. That one too is AD, from that 1400 to present. And we have the 20th century scientific revolution. So these are the four phases of the Western science. This unit focus only on the ancient period. What we are going to be dealing on this particular unit is ancient period. Is only the ancient times that we are going to be dealing with. How Western science developed in the ancient times. That is what this unit is all about, and that is what we are going to be taking. So these are the four phases of the Western science. So let's go into the ancient Western science now. The ancient Western science. Science started mainly in the ancient Egypt, Babylonian, which is presently called Iraq, then later developed by Greeks, then continue under Romans. This is how Western science started. It started mainly in the ancient Egypt. Science started there. Then later Babylon, which is the Babylonia, yeah. Then later developed by Greeks. Then it later continued under Romans. So at that time, science was not separated from philosophy. Anyone studying nature was called a philosopher. So at that time rather, science was not separated from philosophy. Science and philosophy was the same then because they are studying the nature. So science and philosophy was the same. They were not separated then. So anyone studying nature then, if you are studying nature rather, then you are called a philosopher. Nothing like scientists. Nothing like scientists. They are all called a philosopher. So let's look at Egypt, which is the first one. Let's look at the ancient Egypt. So ancient Egypt was very advanced. That was where it started. So which actually means that for science to start in a particular country, it means the country is well advanced. So ancient Egypt was very advanced then. It was a well advanced country then, and this religion, and they have religion centers that are there. In the 17th century, I said, with all the philosophers, all the philosophers, all the people that studied nature, they use religion to interpret them. They observe them in a religious way. So that is why this Egypt, because they have religious centers that are big, they have religious centers that are very advanced. That is why science started there. Because they were able to observe the nature and able to use religions and might to actually break it down. So they have religious centers like Memphis, like Heliopolis, like Thebes. That Memphis is like an old capital that is known for their pyramid. Their pyramid in Egypt. So that's like an old capital for it. And this Heliopolis is a center for sun worship. It's a center for sun worship. While this Thebes is just like a major cultural hub. It's like their cultural hub. So these were controlled by priest scholars who taught many subjects like medicine, mathematics, astronomy, law, religion. So these religious centers was controlled then. It was controlled by priest scholars. They were priests, but they were at the same time scholars who taught many subjects like medicine, like mathematics, like astronomy, like law, like religion. Note, all these subjects are still under philosophy because science has not been separated from philosophy then. So everything is still together. So these religion centers, they are being controlled by the priest scholars that have taught many subjects like this medicine and mathematics, astronomy, law, and religion. So let's think of them like early universities. Think of these centers. Think of these religious centers as early universities that we have in the country. Similar to how University of Ibadan or Unilag teaches many courses today. So let's use this center. Let's take them as a universities. An example like Unilag that teaches many courses today. A lot of courses are in university. Even National Open University has various types of courses. A lot of courses. So the same way like this Memphis. It's just that the Memphis now they do it in a religious way. Like they make it a religious center that is being controlled by priest scholars. While Unilag or now is not controlled by priest scholars. Instead, it's just controlled by a scholar, not priest scholar, because every nation we are observing now is not related to religion. It's not done in the religious way. So that is the difference between this. So this is where the ancient Western science started from, which is Egypt. That is the first place it starts from. So let's move on. So Egyptian contribution to science. Let's look at the Egyptian contribution to science. That is where Western science started from, which means they were able to contribute to science. They were able to start up something, and with their own advancement, they were able to contribute to science. So the first one is calendar and astronomy. They were able to contribute to science by making calendar, by developing calendar and astronomy. So Egyptians studied the River Nile or Nile River. They were able to study the River Nile, and they noticed that the Nile floods once every year. They were able to study this river. Science and philosophy was still together then, and it is just the study of nature. If you're able to study nature, you are a philosopher. So their duty then was to study nature, and they were able to study the River Nile. And they noticed that this river Nile floods once every year. It floods once every year. Then they were able to notice another thing. The moon rises 12 times between floods. Between these floods that comes once every year, they were able to study that the moon also rises 12 times between these floods. So they created a calendar of 12 months, 30 days each. And they added 5 extra days to give 365 days. This is similar to how Nigeria farmers observe rainy seasons before planting crops. This is how Egyptian was able to give us calendar. This is how they were able to make calendar that we are following today. They studied the river Nile. Notice that the river Nile flood comes once every year. And they were able to notice that the moon rises 12 times between this flood. A flood that comes every year. And they were able to notice that moon rises 12 times between those floods. That was how they were able to get the 12 months, 12 times between the flood. So they created a calendar of 12 months. Then days, they make it 30 days each. So each month is having 30 days. So they give an extra 5 days to make it 365 days. That was how they were able to study the nature and able to contribute to science by creating the calendar. So this is also similar to how Nigeria farmer. For a Nigeria farmer, the wash season, they plant during the rainy season, and they know how to calculate their timing. They know when to plant, they know when to cultivate, they know when to add to their farming, and whatever they want to do goes with the timing. You cannot go and plant maize now in dry season. It cannot grow. Another one is mathematics. So they were able to contribute to science by creating mathematics. So evidence found in the ringed mathematical papyrus shows they use fractions and calculations. So the evidence that was found in the ringed mathematical papyrus shows that fractions and calculations shows they use fractions and calculation. So they needed maths for what? They needed maths for measuring land after flood.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Just I was trying to connect this that they did not give their ancestor. From the beginning, I didn't understand. You were talking about Egyptian contribution to science. So I don't arrive at how they created 12 months and 30 days. Honestly, I did not get you very well.
Alright, sir. I'm going to explain again. I'm going to do the explanation again.
Okay, thank you.
So I was talking about the ancient Western science. How the Western science was developed. The origin of the Western science. That was what we were talking about. According to them, started from ancient Egypt. They were the one that actually started science. Before it moves to the Babylonia, before it later moves to the Greek, then before it was also controlled under Romans. So that was the movement. So we were talking about the Egyptian contribution to science. Egypt is a advanced country then. Even up to now they are still advanced country, but then they were very advanced that they were the one that started science. They have enough philosophers then. So they have natures to read. They were able to observe nature. But then they used to observe nature in a religious way. They observed nature in a religious way. They didn't do it, they didn't practicalize it more. Instead, once they are able to observe the nature, they take it in a religious way. and they were able to get what they want. So the first contribution they give to science was creating calendar and astronomy. They were able to create a calendar and astronomy. How did they create a calendar? The Egyptians studied the river Nile. They were able to Alright. Yeah, renowned mathematical papyrus is a key. Papyrus is a key source on Egyptian math. Like it's just like an Egyptian math that is covering fractions, algebra, and geometric. You know, the same way we have board mass here, or the same way we have simultaneous equation here. The same way we can actually say we have trigonometry here. So in their own now, they have rhymed mathematical papyrus. These three words covers for fractions, covers for algebra, covers for geometry. So if they are using this word now, it means they mean three things, which is fraction, algebra, and geometry. Alright. So coming back to the calendar now, I'm talking about the calendar. They were able to study River Nile, and they noticed that the River Nile floods once every year. The River Nile floods once every year, and within this year, they noticed that the moon rises 12 times between the floods. Between this flood that comes once every year, they were able to notice that the moon rises 12 times. So that was how they were able to create 12 months of the calendar. Then 30 days each, which means 1 month 30 days. Then they give it an extra 5 days to make the calculation 365 days. So it's just based on their own nature. That was how they were able to observe it. They didn't take it to the lab, they didn't take it to the research company. Instead, they just did that based on their own understanding and based on how they were able to analyze it. So the second contribution they made was this mathematics. So they were able to prove to us that this read mathematical papyrus shows they use fractions and calculations. So they needed math. They needed math for measuring land after flood. They needed math for building pyramids. They needed math for construction projects. Math is essential for these three things. Then, for them, they believe that they needed math for them to be able to calculate 2 centimeter plus maybe 10 centimeter. So for them to be able to calculate a triangle, for them to be able to calculate an equilateral shape of whatever they want to construct them. So they need mathematics to be able to measure a land after the flood. They need math to be able to measure the land. For their pyramid in Egypt, they need math for them to be able to make the calculations so that everything will rhyme. They also need math. So that was why they were able to create mathematics. They were able to create mathematics just like Nigerian engineers use mathematics for building roads and houses. So the same way we use math here for construction, that's the same way it was actually originated in Egypt then. So they created math because they needed it. Anything that is created is because we needed it. For an example, solar was not available before, but it was because they were able to observe the nature and see that this sun can actually generate heat energy, and from there they were able to convert it to solar panels. They were able to convert it to solar that we are using now. So everything that we needed in this life has been created by God. It's just for human being to just think of one or two things and make use of them. So they were able to create calendar, they were able to create mathematics, then they were able to create medicine. So they were able to create medicine. So evidence from this Edwin Smith papyrus This one too is another name that comprises of medicine. Edwin Smith Papyrus shows that surgery was performed, broken bones was treated, cataract was removed. So evidence from this Edwin Smith Papyrus shows that surgery was performed, broken bones was treated, cataract removed. So these cataract are like waterfalls. They are just like waterfalls or rapid. Like if you are referring to this River Nile section in Egypt, and also it can also mean clouding of the eyes lens, like that's causing vision issues. Maybe you have vision issues. That's another meaning for it. But under this Egyptian stuff, it means they are like waterfalls. They are like waterfalls, and also if you have eyes issue like vision issues, it's called cataract. So cataract are being removed. Surgery was performed then. They were able to create medicine. They were able to create tools that can be used to do surgery, that can be used to perform surgery. They were able to treat broken bones, people that has fracture, people that have accident that their leg is having injury. They were able to treat them, and at the same time they were able to treat the eyes. They were able to create better vision. Everything was connected to science, and everything was done by the Egyptians. They were able to contribute, they were able to develop all of this because of science. So the first famous physician was Imhotep. This was the first famous physician. Then it was called physician, nothing like doctor then. They are called physicians. So the first famous physician was Imhotep, and that was around 2980 BC before Christ. So the Greek later called him the god of medicine. This Imhotep was later referred to as the god of medicine because he was the first famous physician. He was not the first physician, but he was the first famous physician because he was able to do his work very well, and he was able to surpass every other physician under this their medicine category. So we've talked about calendar and astronomy, we've talked about mathematics, we've talked about medicine. These are the three things that the Egyptian was able to contribute to science because they were the ancient scientists. They were the ancient, like that is where the ancient Western science started first. So they were able to develop these three things. So let's go to Babylonia. The Babylonia is presently refers to as the Iraq. So Babylonians also developed mathematics. Them also they developed mathematics, they developed astronomy, they developed engineering. So they were able to develop mathematics also. Then they developed astronomy also, and they developed engineering. For the astronomy, the astronomy is just the study of space, study of stars, study of planets, study of the universe, study of the solar system. That's the meaning of astronomy. And you're able to study the outer space. So the Babylonians was able to develop the mathematics, the astronomy, the engineering. So they built irrigation systems between River Tigris and Euphrates. So they were able to develop an irrigation system between these two rivers. So just like how farmers in northern Nigeria depends on irrigation for River Niger or dam, we are trying to connect it to a Nigeria example where we understand the meaning of this irrigation system. So they built an irrigation system between River Tigris and Euphrates. So just like how Nigerian farmers here in the northern states, they were able to they depend on the irrigation from the river Niger or dam to water their crop. So let's look at the Babylonian contributions. Time system. The first contribution of the Babylonian makes to science was the time system. They were the first to divide 1 hour into 60 minutes, 1 minute into 60 seconds, cycle into 360-degree. So all these formats that we are doing today, 60 seconds makes 1 minute, 160 minutes makes 1 hour, like that. It was the Babylonians that actually started it. They were the one that created the time system. They were the first to divide hour, they were the first to divide time, they were the first to divide seconds, they were the first to divide minutes. They were even the first to define cycle. A cycle is into 360-degree. So you still use this today when checking time or geometry. If you are working on geometry math, there's no way you are not going to use this today. So this has been created long year ago. This has been created a very long year ago, and it was created by the Babylonians. This was the first contribution they made to the science time system. And the second one they made was the astronomy. For the astronomy, they carefully observed planets like Venus. That was their first observation. So they were able to carefully observe planets like Venus. However, they believed disasters was caused by angry God. So they observed nature but lack scientific explanation. See that last part? They observed nature but lack scientific explanation. Everything they were observing then was basically the religion aspect. There's no scientific explanation then. There was no scientific explanation then. All they could do was to relate it with religion. So the only planet they actually observed then was Venus. And why did they observe Venus? Venus is the hottest planet, and it is known for thick sulfuric acid, and also it has an extreme greenhouse effect. So they believe they could actually observe Venus then. I don't know, but they have their own reasons. So that was why they took a clear observation on that planet, and they believe that the disaster was caused by angry God. Instead of going to relate it to a scientific to give it a scientific explanation, the disaster they mean then was because of the hotness. Venus is regarded as the hottest planet. So they believe that this was caused by angry gods because they have no scientific explanation. They lack scientific explanation. So there's no way they can explain it in a scientific way. So that's for the astronomy part. So let's look at the African philosophy. We've talked about astronomy, we've talked about time system that was contributed by the Babylonian to science rather. The Babylonian contribution was astronomy and time system, while the one for Egypt was mathematics. They were able to develop mathematics, calendar, and astronomy also. So for African philosophy now, Egypt is still under Africa. So Egypt greatly influenced Greece. For this African philosophy, Egypt greatly influenced Greece. Many Greek thinkers they study in Egypt. Egypt is where the Western science started. So majority of the philosophers they actually studied in Egypt. Majority of the thinkers, majority of the Greek thinkers they studied in Egypt. Examples is Euclid. He wrote Element of Geometry. This Euclid was the one that wrote the Element of Geometry. He studied in Egypt. Archimedes, the foundation of mechanics, he was the one that founded like mechanics, anything that is related with mechanical engineering. He was the one that founded it. It was the foundation of mechanics. So him also he studied in Egypt. Then Ptolemy, he wrote Amgis. He was the one that wrote this Amgis. Ptolemy is also a great thinker that studied in Egypt. So this Amgis is just like you covering planetary models. Like he actually wrote a book about the universe, or he wrote about the universe rather, about astronomy levels. That that was his own thinking. That was about his own foundation. Yeah, that was what he was able to found. Then Hypatia, that was the first woman philosopher. She also studied in Egypt. She was a great thinker that studied in Egypt also. So the Alexandria Academy in Egypt became the scientific center of the ancient world. This academy in Egypt became the scientific center of the ancient world. Egypt has produced a lot of philosophers, and they have a lot of ancient memories, ancient craft, ancient educations, ancient academy. They have them a lot because that was where the ancient Western science started from. So they've produced a lot of Greek thinkers, they've produced a lot of philosophers. Even before Aristotle and Plato, they've produced a lot before them. So these are the examples of great thinkers that studied in Egypt. Take note of the names. The spelling matters a lot. So ancient Greek, let's look at the ancient Greek. Greek improved science by using reasoning instead of holy religion. So this is where Greek comes in. This is how they step up the science. This is how they step up science. I was talking about the ancient Greek. So this is how they step up science. They improve science by using reasoning. Reasoning, like adding logical reasoning instead of holy religion. Then they were using holy religion. But when the ancient Greek, when they actually take charge, they improve science. They added to science by using reasoning. So they divided it into two. We have the pre-Socratics and we have the Socratics. The pre-Socratics, we have the Socratics. Those are the two divisions the ancient Greek was able to give to science. So they have to improve it, they have to add reasoning to it instead of only religion, so that a scientific explanation can be given. So let's continue. Let's look at pre-Socratic thinkers. Who are they? What did they do? So pre-Socratic thinkers, they wanted to know what is the basic substance of everything. That is their own curiosity. They want to know what is the basic substance of everything. Them, they are curious to know what the basic substance of everything is. They are like the OG of philosophers. So they just want to know. They want to know what things are made of, are made of. The first person is Tales of Miletus. That was the first philosopher under this pre-Socratic thinker, Tales of Miletus. So he said everything comes from water. That was his own law. That was his own theory. That everything comes from water. That was his own belief. So his own belief was that everything that was made, everything that is living on earth comes from water. Then he was the one that also predict eclipse. He was the first person that predicted eclipse. Then, so that was his own way of thinking. Although he gave a lot of explanation to that everything comes from water. These tales of Miletus. Then the second philosopher is Anaximander. Him also said that original substance is the infinite something. He was able to predict his own substance, saying original substance is the infinite substance. So he criticized tales, and this started scientific criticism. He criticized the first person, which is the tales of Miletus, because his own law or his own theory says that original substance is the infinite something. Then the third person is the Pythagoras. This is where we have Pythagoras theorem in math. Pythagoras. So Pythagoras said everything is numbers. And he was able to give his own thinking and say everything is numbers. So Pythagoras theorem is was named after him. Pythagoras theorem in math is about numbers also. The fourth person is Heraclitus. So he said everything is change, like nothing is permanent. That was his own thinking. Although they gave evidence to what they were thinking, they were able to prove it out. He said everything is change. Everything is changed, like nothing is permanent. And the fifth philosopher is Democritus. He said everything is made of atom. Everything is made of atom, and this idea later became modern atomic theory. This modern atomic theory is in chemistry. So Democritus said everything is made of atoms and molecules. So this idea later became modern atomic theory. So these are the five philosophers under pre-Socratic thinkers: Tales of Miletus, Anaximander, Pythagoras, Heraclitus, Democritus. Tales of Miletus is about water, Anaximander is about infinite something, Pythagoras is for number, Heraclitus is for change, like nothing is permanent, while Democritus is for atom. Just use that to remember them in case you see them inside your exam hall. Then let's go to Socratic thinkers. So the first person under this Socratic thinker is the Socrates. Used questioning method like lecturers asking students questions in the class. So this philosopher is known for I know nothing, and his method is someone that asks questions, like he use questions to explore ethics and truth. When you are a philosopher and you he's trying to use question to explore ethics. For an example, I'm showing you that this cup is green. I told you that see this green cup, and you're now questioning me that why is it green, or how did they make it green, how is it painted green, questions like that. But he was asking those questions to explore ethic and truth. That's his own thinking. Then another one is Plato. Plato founded the academy in Athens and believed reasoning is more important than experiment. So that was Plato's belief. He believed that reasoning is more important than experiments. And it's better for you to reason, it's better for you to give a critical thinking than experiment. Then the third one is Aristotle. Aristotle is also a great philosopher. Aristotle studied many subjects. He was a philosopher that covered logic, ethics, biology, and more. And he's also a student of Plato. This second one. So Aristotle is a student of Plato, and he studied many subjects. So he believed in observation a lot. He believed in observation, and his idea controlled science for 2000 years. Imagine someone idea controlling science for 2000 years. So these are the three Socratic thinkers that we have: the Socrates, the Plato, the Aristotle. So let's go to the Roman period. The Roman period, which is the 50 BC and AD 400, like from 50 BC to AD 400. That BC means before Christ, that AD means after death. So Romans were more interested in war, politics, administration. These are the three things the Romans were more interested in. You know, the ancient Western science started from ancient Egypt, then later to the Greek, before it comes to the Roman. So for the Roman period now, Romans were more interested in war. They were more interested in war, politics, and administration. But they contributed in calendar. Them too, they were able to contribute to science. They were able to contribute to calendar. They were able to contribute to calendar. So they contributed to calendar. This Julius Caesar. Yeah, we should know Julius Caesar. Everything that belongs to Caesar must give it to Caesar. So this Julius Caesar introduced Julian calendar. It was the one that introduced the Julian calendar, which was later modified to Gregorian calendar. And this is the calendar we are using in Nigeria today. This Gregorian calendar. That calendar that the Egyptian created, Roman actually introduced the Julian calendar. They modify it. They make some changes and they modify it and they turn it into Gregorian calendar. And that is the calendar we are using in Nigeria today. Yes, sir. Now, the number three is Aristotle. I talked about Aristotle. So I said Aristotle studied many subjects. Studied subjects like logic, ethics, biology, and more. So he believed in observation. And then he was a student of Plato. This second philosopher, Plato. Aristotle was a student of Plato, and he was able to study many subjects more than Plato. So which actually make his own idea to control science for 2000 years. His ideas was able to control science for 2000. His observation, his experiment, his theory, everything he did was able to control science for 2000 years before another thing came up. So these are the three Socratic thinkers. These are the three philosophers for the Socratic thinking. If you look at the Socratic thinkers, they are different from the pre-Socratic thinkers. The pre-Socratic thinkers are the ones that just believe that every living thing is made up of something. That is their own belief. But for the Socratic thinkers, they were able to do another method, like they were able to create another pattern of thinking, like asking questions. They were able to bring in reasoning. They were able to use they are using their head, not just guessing. Now they are making it logical. They are adding reasoning to whatever they are propounding. For an example, for the Plato, he was able to believe that reasoning is more important than experiment. So that is for the Socratic thinking. Uh, yeah, that is what I was on. Yeah, that is what I'm explaining. Yeah, that is what I'm explaining currently. So just alright, sir. So for the Roman period now, I said they were more interested in war, politics, and administration, but they also contributed in science. They did their own part. They make it more advanced. They contributed to it. So the first contribution they made was into the calendar. They contributed into this calendar, and this Julius Caesar was the one that introduced the Julian calendar. Julius Caesar is someone we've actually heard of that name. Yeah, we've heard of the name. Julius Caesar was the one that introduced the Julian calendar, which was later modified into the Gregorian calendar. And this is the calendar Nigeria uses today. So that's the calendar we're using in Nigeria today, the Gregorian calendar. It was modified and it was introduced by Julius Caesar. Then they contributed into the public health also. The Romanians contributed into the public health. They used science to build hospitals, to build sanitation systems, to build water supply systems. So similar to how Nigeria government builds teaching hospitals, this is what Romans did. They were able to take science to next level to create facilities. So they built hospitals that is used to test people, that is used for surgery, that is used to remove the cataracts. Then they were able to build sanitation systems, like all this drainage, and to make the environment to be clean. Then they created water supply system also using science. They were able to study and create all these things. Then the third one is natural history. That is the third one, natural history. So Pelly the Elder is a Romanian author. This name is for a Romanian author. Pliny the Elder wrote natural history, compiling earlier knowledge. So this author was able to write about the natural history, compiling the earlier knowledge, the knowledge they've gained, the knowledge they've gotten from all their history. He was able to pile them up, he was able to connect them together and write about them. So this natural history is a massive work on science and nature. Natural history is a massive work on science. What is inside the book is a massive work of science. So he had to compile the earlier knowledge, all the knowledge from Egypt down to Greek before it comes to Roman. He was able to compile everything together. So let's look at the reason why this unit is important, what it teaches us, this unit. So it teaches that science started from observation. Science is the study of nature in this ancient time, in this ancient period. When you study nature, you are a scientist, you are a philosopher. So how do you study nature? How do you study nature? How do you look up and be like, see the way this, you are looking up currently now, and you are seeing that this white cloud is moving. That's the nature, is moving. The first thing you are doing is to observe. You are observing that it is moving. Before you give a problem definition, the first thing you do is to observe. So science started from observation. You on your tap, and the water is coming out from the tap. If there's supposed to be an issue, maybe the water just stopped. The first thing you do is to observe. You observe why the water stopped. So science started from observation. Then logical thinking developed gradually. Logical thinking, also called reasoning, it developed gradually. If you should look at from the ancient Egypt, there was nothing like logical thinking there. It was until when they got to the Greek thinkers, that was when they were able to add reasoning to it. That was when they were able to think logically. So logical thinking developed gradually. Then criticism, like Anaximander correcting tales, is important. Under science, it's important for critics. Like criticism is very important. Like it's very important. Let me put it that way. It's normal for them to condemn what you are giving out. It's normal for them to say, yeah, this is not correct because the evidence you are giving is not clear. And at the same time, if your evidence is clear, you are going to accept it. So science moves from religion to reasoning to observation. Science started, the nature was observed in a religious way. Then it moved to reasoning. They were able to apply their head, give it a logical thinking. Then they were able to observe it and also give a scientific explanation. So that is why this unit is very important. So let's look at the summary of everything we've done. Science began in Egypt and Babylonia. Yeah, Babylonia is presently called Iraq, not Iran, Iraq. So Egyptian developed calendar. The Egyptian was able to contribute into the calendar, medicine and mathematics. They developed calendar. They studied the River Nile, then medicine and mathematics. Then Babylonia developed time system and astronomy. Babylonians was able to develop the time system. That is for 60 seconds makes 1 minute, 1 minute makes 60 minutes makes 1 hour, 1 hour, 24 hours makes 1 day. So they were able to develop the time system and astronomy. They were able to develop astronomy also, the study of the outer space. So Greek introduced they introduced logical reasoning. Greek was able to introduce logical reasoning because they have great thinkers there. Although those great thinkers studied they studied in Egypt, but they were great thinkers, and they were divided into two: the pre-Socratic thinkers and the Socratic thinkers. Also, Romans improved calendar. They improved the calendar with the help of Julius Caesar. They will improve and modify it to this Gregorian calendar that we are using currently in Nigeria. So they improved calendar, they improved geography and public health. They were able to build hospitals, they were able to build water supply system. So ancient science was mostly descriptive, not experimental. Ancient science then, in that way, like the ancient science then was mostly descriptive. Everything was just based on explanation, was just based on observation. No experiment, no experiment at all, because there was no scientific explanation to what they were doing. Imagine them saying that, yeah, because Venus is hot, God is angry. Like God is angry. Yeah, that was their own belief then, because there's no way they can actually experiment on it. They don't have the tools, they don't have the facilities, they don't have the equipment for them to travel from Earth to go and confirm what they are saying. So they just give description. So that is for this unit 5 of GST105. So let's go to practice questions, whereas you'll be able to ask your own question while I have my own question to ask. So this is the question here. Identify two contributions of the Roman Empire to science. Roman is still the same as Roman. Don't mind the empire that was added to it. Two contributions. All right. Boss. All right. Okay.
Calendar and so on and so forth.
Yes. 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 Yes.
So now, why is that some months are not complete and some are complete? How do you see that calculation? I don't understand that. That's my question.
Okay. So for the first one you asked, is there anything that Nigeria contributed to the world? Yeah, to time. There's nothing Nigeria contributed. Yeah, we're not supposed to even talk about that. Nigeria is not technologically advanced. So let's go to the your second question now. That says how was time created? Why are we not using the same time generally? Right?
Yes,
Are
and
you a
what did
s-
you find it
are you a science
why?
are you a science student?
I'm not.
Okay, you are not. Okay, maybe that's why you're asking. So let me tell you this.
Yes.
You know, we have out of this world, we have other planet system. We have 9 planet system. We have the sun, we have the moon, and everything is like in a
Yes.
rotationary system. The sun is in the middle, and we are currently on the earth, and the earth is also rotating, but the sun is not rotating. The sun is standing in a particular position. It's not rotating. Why earth is rotating? If the if we are in the afternoon, for an example now, we are in the afternoon, the sun is always out. If we are in the afternoon, it means that
Yes.
Nigeria, for an example now, Nigeria is facing the sun. That is why the sun is shining to us. Why USA, maybe they are still in the night, because they have not, like, the earth has not revolved to their own path. That is how it works for that.
But
So
yes,
yeah, the 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 sun cannot shine in on everywhere on earth at the same time. You know, it's just that you are placing. Okay, you want to point a torch now. You point a torch to a wall. You're only going to see the front of the wall, not the back of the wall. Do you get that illustration?
I'm going to see the front of the wall, not the back.
Not the back of, yeah, you are pointing a torch to a wall. You are going to see the okay, you want to point a torch to a gate now. You are pointing that torch to the gate, you on it. The ray of the light is going to only show you the front of the gate, not the back of the gate. It is until when you go inside and you on that same torch from back, that's when you're going to see the back of the gate. And when you are seeing the back of the gate, you will not be able to see the front of the gate again. So that is how it works. Earth is not flat. Instead, Earth is a cycle, like a cycle in shape. So if the part that is facing the sun now, any part that is facing the sun, that is when they are in the afternoon. And when currently now, the sun is not shining at us. That is why we are in the night. And in another countries that are like Austria, for an example, that are like 11 hours away from us, they are still going to be in their own afternoon. Even US now, be minus, okay, 6 hours or 8 hours, then they will still be in around 6 o'clock, 4 o'clock in some places in the US. So which means the sun is still shining there. So that is why we cannot be using the same time. And this time system of the thing started from these Babylonians and Egyptians. But as time goes on, from the beginning we are talking about the ancient period now. They are using their own,
Yes.
they are giving their own explanation based on religion way. They have no tools, they have no equipment to actually give it a scientific explanation. If you look at what we are discussing since, there was no scientific explanation there. Everything was just based on they study, they study, they study. So they were just able to study.
Yes.
Yeah, they were able to just look at it from their own inside, because they are advanced people. Their IQ is different, is very sharp. So they were able to look at it basically like looking at it on a normal glance, and they were able to feel like this is what it is, this is what it is. They were able to study. They took their time. Imagine someone studying a flood, studying a river, and was able to notice that it's only once in a year that river used to flood. Do you know how many years he would have been able to study that flood, like that river rather, for him to be able to say that yes, it is only once in a year that flood used to, like this river used to flood. He would have taken his time to study that river for like 8 years to make it, yes, so that he'll be able to believe that it is only once in a year. So that was their own belief then. So that was, it was the civilization that was growing, that was gradually increasing, logical reason that was being added to science, that make human to actually develop this time system. It's not God that developed this for us. It was human that developed the time system, that make it to be like, yeah, Nigeria is +1, USA is +5, +6, +7, another country is +4. Ethiopia is, if you notice, Ethiopia calendar, they are currently still in 2018. You can go and check. Yeah, yeah, 2018 or 2022. You can check now. Also, yeah, Ethiopia. Let me let me check to verify that. For Ethiopia, the country, that they are not using our own calendar. So to tell you that it is human being that is doing all of these things, but based on what they are able to propound, based on what they are able to actually believe on. Okay, here it says Ethiopia is in 2016 in the Ethiopian calendar right now. They are still in 2016 and we are in 2026. So their own calendar is just a unique mix of this captive and this Julius Caesar calendar. So they mixed it together. So it is human being that was able to create this system. You know, anything philosophy is just studying, studying and studying. Some people will challenge you, some people will believe you. There's some philosophers that will tell you that there is no God, and there are some that will tell you that there is God. Even people that tell you that there is no God, they believe that there is God, but they just want to give you, like they want you to talk, and that they're going to be able to prove you wrong, that there's still no God. So that is how it works for them. So it is the help of Babylonians, Romanians, and the Egyptians that they were able to create this time of a thing. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question very well. All right. So to my own question now, let's identify two contributions of the Romans Empire to science. What did they contributed to science? I made mention of three things, but yeah, I'm asking for two. What did they contribute to the science? What was their contribution? Yes. Yeah, them too. They were able to. They were able to add to the time system. They were able to add to the time system. I made mention of this Julius Caesar, and I said they were the one that modified the calendar. See, the calendar we are using currently now in Nigeria. We are using Gregorian calendar now in Nigeria. So they were the one. It was Julius Caesar that added and remodified the calendar that the Egyptian created. Egyptian created calendar, and they say 12 months, 30 days, then they add 6 days, and they add 5 extra days to make it 365 days. If you should break it down and do a calculation of those details, it's not going to give you 365 days. One one sorry 30 days. 30 days makes a month, right? And they give us 12 months. So 12 times 30. If you have to calculate for it, is 12 times 30. Okay, 12 times 30, 360 now. Then they now say they added extra 5 days, just like that. How will you just add extra 5 days because you want to get 365 days? So there's no explanation for how they got the 5 days. There's no explanation for it. And if we are to look at the days of the month that are 30 or some that are 31, there's no explanation for it. We only have 4 days. We only have 4 days that is not 31. The remaining 7 days, I mean, we have 7 days that are 31 here, and one is 28. One is 28, 7 is 31, 4 is 30. If you should calculate everything together, it doesn't still break it down to what they are saying here, because them, they don't have a scientific explanation to what they say. They were just able to study and just give their own analysis. So the Romanians contributed to the time system. Then they also contributed to the health system, the public health system. Yeah, they were able to build hospitals. Yeah, they were able to build hospitals. They were able to build, yeah, water system, sanitation system also. So they were able to do those 3 things. So that is for the question. So let's go to objective questions and the fill in the gap sections. So this is the objective question now. So let's look at the questions that are here. The first one says the origin of Western science is mainly traced to. What's the answer of this? The origin of Western science, yeah, from the Egypt to the Babylonia. Yeah. So the origin of Western science is mainly traced from Egypt to the Babylonians. So the second one, the Egyptian calendar was based on what? What was it based on? Yes, observation of the Nile flooding and moon cycles. Yes. So number three, who is regarded as the first physician in the ancient world? B. Imhotep. Yeah, he was the first famous physician. So number four, the philosopher who believed that everything is made up of atom is what? There was a philosopher that believed that everything is made up of atom. This is under the pre-Socratic thinkers. Yeah, the pre-Socratic thinkers. No, Pythagoras is number. Pythagoras, yeah, Democritus, sir. Democritus, he was the one that believed that everything was made up of atoms. So number five, one major contribution of the Roman Empire to science was, I just explained that in this our practice question. Yes. So they were able to reform the calendar. Yes, they were able to reform the calendar and public health. So let's go to the fill in the gap section. Let's look at the fill in the gap section. The three religious centers in ancient Egypt were dash, dash, and dash. This was the first explanation we made. Yeah, if you can remember. Yeah, Memphis, Heliopolis. Yeah, one. There's many one. Thebes. Yeah, Thebes. Thebes. That's the third one. Thebes. So we have the Memphis, the Heliopolis, the Thebes. Yeah. Then for second question, the Egyptian mathematical knowledge was recorded in the dash. There was someone that asked me about that name. I was explaining. There was a name like this. Yeah, Rind. That Rind mathematical papyrus. The Egyptian mathematical knowledge was recorded. It was recorded in the rhyme mathematical papyrus. Yeah, you see, this is the reason why this course is very difficult to. Is that this is just the clear reason. So yeah, it has to be the theory and yeah, mathematical papyrus, and you have to be careful of the spelling. Imagine all those names. So question theory. Dash believed that everything in the universe is made up of numbers. Yeah, Pythagoras. Pythagoras. Then number 4, the first physician of the ancient world was the sun is yeah, Imhotep. Then number 5, Dash proposed that matters is made up of atoms. You have answered this. Yeah, Democritus. So that is for this unit. So let's just try as much as possible. See, I've seen, not even I've seen, yeah, I've seen, let me use the word I've seen. I've seen students that have been carrying this course from 100 level to 300 level to 400 level, because this course is a very crazy course. You have to be familiar with the words and you have to understand it. Don't just read, understand it, because it is complicated. Like, all these their names and whatever they are doing, you have to just know them. You have to, I don't know, maybe you have to cram them, or maybe you have to put it in a way whereas you are going to see them and remember. That is just about that. They might twist the question, they might make it they might ask in an annoying way or a frustrating way, but you have to give them what they want so that yourself you can go. So please, let's put our mind to this course. Sure you get, but it's a general course for everybody. So yeah. Let's don't worry, we'll get used to it. We'll get used to it. So thank you everybody for joining today and tonight's class. So another one is till 9 o'clock tomorrow again, by God's grace. Yes, sir. All right. Wait. One once the okay. Let's try to join back. Let's try to join back. Let's try to join back. 10 more minutes. 2 minutes. All right, sir. Who was trying to ask questions the other time? Mr. Kolawole?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, sir.
That was me. Hello, sir.
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, so I was
Yes, sir.
this sports just
Yes.
sorry. I'm studying toilet studies.
Yeah, the thing is that timetable is not for the 300 level above. Although there are some 100 level courses that are there, courses like all these JIL. So if you are doing all these JIL, all these JLS, those courses are pen and paper courses. 100 level, they are going to do they're going to write it with the 300 level. But if they are not offering those courses, if they are just offering plainly your TSM and your GSTs and your boss, your own timetable is still going to come out, but that is not now. This timetable that is out is for 300 level above. So in case you check and you do not see your course, it's not for you. Alright, sir. So yeah, if you are doing GIL, please check your course slip, check your exam slip so that you can check that timetable. Because that course is very confusing. A lot of people will think maybe they are writing it as exam and it is POP exam. So they have to check first to prevent them from writing it again. So let's wait till our own timetable comes out. So I really appreciate every one of us tonight. So let's just call it a day. Let's prepare ourselves for tomorrow. Let's have a wonderful night. Bye. Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone. Bye.